Hi, I'm Paul Germain, and welcome to another session of Smart Boating. As you know, if you watched this show before, we tend to lean towards education information, helping you make better decisions about boating, whether it's how to dock your boat or how to trailer your boat, how to paint the bottom, maybe how to insure it. But every now and then we take a little trip down a side lane here to show you an interesting part of the industry you may not be familiar with. And that's what we're going to do here today. Today we're at the Pert Lowell Company, which is a boat shop located on the banks of the Parker River in Newbury. And joining us to guide us through this process is Ralph Johnson, who's the son-in-law of Pert Lowell, the original founder of the shop. Welcome, Ralph.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good, good, good. This is going to be a great show today. It's a really interesting place. And but before we get into it, can you help our viewers understand a little bit about the background of the shop and kind of what you do here these days?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. The Lowell family landed on the other side of the river here in 1635. They were farmers and wool merchants, believe it or not. I don't know how they got any wool to deal with in 1635, but by 1725 they had removed themselves to Amesbury, which at the time was called Point Shore, and they started fishing during the summer and then building boats to go fishing during the winter. This continued until about 1793 when, with the founding of the country and industry taking off, they got contracts to build fishing dories for fleets that would go out of Gloucester or New Bedford. And from 1793 to 1946, there were two shops in Amesbury, Pert's ancestors and the other side of the family that is now Lowell's Boat Shop. Anyways, in 1946, the family moved back to Newbury, built Parker River Marine across the street, decided to downsize in 1955 and built this shop here where we are today. Pert has built several different types of boats, and was pretty famous for his Town Class sailboat, which we'll discuss later. But about 1980, I got involved because I was working for a banking company in Boston, unhappy, thought I'd take a couple of years off to learn the boat building business, but I've been here 36 years, obviously never getting back to banking.
Wow, that's a lot of history there.
Okay.
Well, you're just the right guy to guide us through this. We're going to really use a photographic foundation here today, and you're just the right guy to help us with that. So
thank you.
Why don't we get right into it?
Okay.
Well, Ralph, you know, there's a rich history here at the Pert Lowell Company, and you guys have built an awful lot of boats over the years, dories and sailboats and prams and skiffs and all that. And we, quite frankly, I don't think we can cover them all today, but we're going to take a shot at it, and we're going to kind of go in that order, I hope.
Okay.
And I thought we'd start off with dories, and we've got a shot here on our laptop. We're going to be using the laptop to guide us through a lot of this, so we'll take a quick look at that. This is a Banks dory, and once people understand what that is, I wonder if you could explain a little bit about the history of building these types of dories, because that's a really integral part of the Lowell Boat Companies, right?
Yes, it is. It is. This particular shot here is a 19-foot Banks dory we built for a gentleman in Connecticut back in the 90s who wanted to finish it himself. So that's why it's natural wood, and the sheer strake, which is darker than the others, is mahogany. It was quite common to build ships. I might point out to you that when these were actually built for the fishing trades in the 1790s up through the 1850s, they were never painted.
Oh,
it was expected that they would last 5 years, and then you'd be back for some new ones.
Throwaways, yeah.
Throwaways.
Now we've got some patterns here, and this was part of the whole building process, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. What's the story behind these?
Okay, this is the stem, which every dory was built from a pattern, the stem pattern.
Okay.
The goal here was to standardize construction so that these could be built quickly.
Yes.
And the more patents you use, the quicker you can build them.
Yes.
And you'd have one guy standing at the saw sawing these out, another guy doing the planks, and maybe a third guy working on the bottom.
Yes.
I have in my hand here the frames.
Okay.
And obviously you have the frame across the bottom of the boat, but then you can use the same piece for the frame up the side of the boat, because the Banks dory, and you'll see it in in subsequent shots,
Yeah.
has straight sides.
Yes.
Straight sides because the more fish you put in it, the lower it went in the water, the more stable it became.
Right, right.
Also straight sides so they could be stored, nested on the decks of the fishing schooners
Yeah.
out of Gloucester and New Bedford.
So this whole pattern thing, that was a real differentiation
Yes.
between what the Lowells
Well,
were doing and other people building
That's
doors,
true.
right?
That's true because a lot of small builders were one of a kind.
Right, right.
We
They call
we
it
were
stick built in a house.
we were hundreds of a kind.
That's right. Well, we've got some interesting pictures here. Let's turn our attention back to those.
Sure.
And again, how many foot was this? Eight? Was it
19
18?
foot.
Okay,
19 foot bank story. And you can just see here, there, you see the edge of the motor well. This
Yes.
man was not going to row this
Okay.
dory out to the fishing grounds. He was going to putter
Putter out. Okay.
out to the fishing grounds.
Well, let's look at the next photo here. This is, we've actually got two photos here, so I'm going to go to the second one that has a little more detail. There's a
Okay.
little more detail. What's going on here? Looks like kind of a third, maybe a third of the way through the build process, or?
Well, it's probably a quarter of the way through the
Quarter of
build
the way.
process. There are several things to notice here. First of all, you see these planks underneath
Yes.
are forms.
Yes.
And they're at different heights.
Yes.
So they formed, when you push the wood down against them, you formed a curve on the bottom,
Right.
which allows the boat to go through the water. To hold those forms, to hold the bottom in place on the forms
Yes.
were these A-frames,
Okay.
which are simple wood jacks
Yeah.
against a beam in the ceiling to hold the shape of the bottom.
Yes.
I mentioned the frames, and you see here the frames are straight-sided, straight-sided dory, and you can just barely see the frames running across the boat. The joint between the frame on the side and the frame on the bottom used to be a metal plate,
Oh.
but in 1790 they were plain old soft steel,
Yeah.
so they rusted away.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why 5 years for a dory.
Right.
Nowadays we use plywood soaked in epoxy, lasts much longer. There's one plank on each side on this shot here, and there's a stick here you see,
I see that. Yeah.
and that stick actually will be clamped to the sides of the frames and will form the line of the shear strake.
Okay.
Each builder has his own idea of what makes a good-looking boat.
Yes.
So,
So there's a lot of
that's it.
stuff going on there.
yes.
Well, this
Okay.
picture here, it looks like it's starting to do more of the planking.
Yes,
here.
this has the second plank on the what we would call the river side of the shop,
Okay.
and it's held temporarily in place with clamps that you can see.
Yes.
Make sure it fits, and then you'd screw it on. You can see the screws at the
Yeah,
end here.
okay.
Screw it on to the planks.
Were there any glues or anything
There,
involved?
there are no glues involved in dory building,
Okay.
especially in the 1790s.
Right.
The trick was to make the bevel joint between each plank watertight.
Yes.
And you did that by carefully planing to a bevel, which we could show you later when we talk about tools.
Right. What sort of wood are we using? What are the planks made out of?
The planks are made out of eastern white pine,
Okay.
which was the traditional for small boats. The stem was made out of oak, and the stern was made out of oak.
Okay. Very strong.
Strong,
materials for the stem
strong
of the stone.
materials, and would hold the screws and the nails. Originally, the boats were held together with clench nails, which is like a rivet. You
Yep.
put them through every
Yep.
3 inches,
Right.
and then bend them over to make
Okay.
it tight.
Yeah, that was a pretty good method back then, right?
Yes,
That's very
yes.
common. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, they weren't worried because every 5 years you bought a new dory.
It had a cycle to it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Here's another picture here.
Okay, this is the boat finished. You can better see the motor well. It's held together with like a large clamp, 2 metal plates on the ends and long screws with nuts running between the 2 plates so that the motor, when you put it in there, wouldn't shake the box apart,
We don't want that.
which you don't want to happen,
No.
especially if you're 5 miles offshore.
And we've got the different woods in
And
there.
you
it
get
looks
the
like.
yes, you can see the stem of the oak. The rub rails are oak. The mahogany shear strake plank and the
Yeah.
pine planks underneath.
So this is a little fancier construction, perhaps, than they used to use in the
Oh,
old
yeah,
days, right?
yeah, yes. This
Yeah.
man wasn't planning to
More
trade
of a
it in 5
this
years.
is more of a gentleman's
Gentleman's,
story.
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a pretty boat. Pretty boat.
Thank you.
How about this one here? What? Look at the shape of the bottom there, and it looks pretty flat. Actually, pretty narrow.
It is narrow. Well, we
bottom
go
to the
back to
boat.
that fact that once you've got more fish in the boat, the flare of the sides, the more
Right.
displacement of water,
Yeah.
the more stability you have. I might point out also that the traditional dory had this little notch in the stern,
Okay.
and that's so you could row single-handed,
Oh,
or
right.
scull, as they say,
Yeah, we used to scull. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get back to your mother ship.
Yeah. How far up would they load one of these, Ralph? Maybe halfway to the gunnels?
Probably. This is 5 planks, so they'd probably come up to the top of the third. So there'd be two planks showing out of the water.
Hopefully not a big sea that day.
My father-in-law always said, you can go out in a dory. If you go out in a dory, and it's okay, you can come back in the dory. There would be no safer boat in the water.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah. But take his word for it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is another type of boat here, and we're going to shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about the bank dory, which was that commercial fishing heavy thing. We're going to talk a little bit about the Swampscott dory now. We're going to talk more about it, but were there some primary differences in terms of, I don't know, the length, the width, the materials? Were there some core things? People said, I'd rather have a Swampscott dory than a Banks dory.
Okay. There are some differences which we'll point out. First being that they were started, or the design was made famous in Swampscott, Massachusetts,
Okay.
where there were a couple of builders of dories.
Oh, yeah.
Again, though, the mid-1850s, they were built for fishermen who
Oh, they were.
were not going to have them stacked up on bigger
Okay,
boats. They
right,
were
I see. Yes.
put out from the, and they were sometimes called surf
Yes,
dories. So
launched
they
from
were
the
put
shore,
out from
right?
launched from the shore.
Yes.
You notice here the rounded shape.
Yes.
So you had much more stability with a lot less weight
Okay.
in the boat.
All right. Less tender when it's unloaded.
Less tender when it's unloaded.
Yes.
And you rowed with two
Oh, you did.
oars because there was no one to get you out over the waves.
Yes. Right.
And you can't scull out over the waves.
Right.
But again, the traditional narrow stern, narrow stem, with a little breast hook there to help stabilize the shear strakes. Notice the quite sweeping line, too, on a Swampscott dory,
Yeah.
which makes it prettier.
A little prettier. That's what I was thinking when you were talking about it. We've got about 8 or 10 pictures of the build here. Let's take a
Okay,
look.
this is my father-in-law, Pert Lowell, caulking the bottom of the boat.
Yeah.
The boat bottom consisted of usually 4 or 5 planks, and they were just butted together, side by side. And to keep them from leaking,
Yes.
well, first of all, if it was fresh wood, newly built, it shouldn't leak
Right.
because you took your time to plane the
Yes,
joints.
yes.
However, after one season, they dry out a little.
Right.
So he's putting cotton
Yes.
down, cotton caulking down into the seams between each seam that would hold the moisture into the wood to keep it
Oh, is that what it
swelled
did?
up.
I remember the cotton caulking. Yeah.
But that was only on the bottom. Again, on the sides, it's the boat builder's ability to butt that wood close enough to keep it
You knew if he knew
to
what he
keep
was
it
doing.
Yeah. This is a shot of the bow looking up from underneath, showing you how all the planks are fared into what's called the false stem.
Okay.
So without that, you'd see the end of every plank. But they put an oak piece on top of it and then you had to plane the edges down so that it would be nice, a smooth line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, and this is looking inside the boat from the stern looking aft. It shows you the aft seat. Dories always had the traditional lazarette in the rear with the
Yes.
center plank that opened up so you could store the anchor in there.
Right.
And any other gear to keep it out of the way when you're rowing and the sea was not perfectly calm.
Yep.
Again, this is not a quote fishing dory.
No.
So it's got a mahogany stern, mahogany seats here, and you can just see the the end of the centerboard box we were talking about being held in place sideways by another seat.
Yeah, this is a fancy version right here.
Fancy version.
There's another close-up.
This is a less fancy version.
Yes.
Also, so this lazarette's built out of pine.
Yeah.
Shows you those plates we talked about in the
Yes.
first, back in the bank story, and the floorboards before they were painted.
Okay.
And the
This is a nice shot of the shear. This is where you get really get a good idea of the difference between the bank story and the Swampscott dory, right?
Right, you're right. Much sheer, and notice the curve up on the side
Yeah.
for the Swampscott dory.
Were they all the dame kind of dead rise, if you will, or did they have different?
Well, there was now Nahant, you know, which is not very far away from
It's almost next door. Next
Swamp.
on
Well,
over,
you've
yeah.
got Lynn in the way.
Yeah.
Although people, let's not talk about Lynn.
Yeah. So there were some differences.
Nahant would have a little bit different curve on the
It
side
would, okay.
to distinguish it from
I
the
see,
Swampscott
I
dory.
see. Well, really pretty lines there.
And mainly, many Swampscott dories were 17 feet. Nahant built theirs at 18 feet.
All right, just to be a little different. Okay. Now here's one underway here.
Here's one underway. This is the same dory we've been showing you previously, the Swampscott dory. These are three, well, myself in the stern and two of my friends. We took part in a dory race from Amesbury, from Lowell's Boat Shop in Amesbury down to the Custom House in Newburyport. When we were doing our sea trials before the race, we found out we could not row straight, so one of us has to steer the boat, and the oar is in that little notch in the stern that we mentioned, that the single fisherman would scull the boat.
Yeah.
But we used it for steering.
Well, that's quite a shot.
And I don't think we won, but we were right up there in the
You're
lead.
pretty close?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the kind of conclusion of our dory section. That's very, very important to this company, right?
Right. For many hundreds, almost 200 years, yes.
That's amazing. Right. Well, Ralph, you know, part of the background of the shop is not only dories, but it's also sailing craft, and we've got a nice shot of one of the sailboats that you built here, a Townie class, and we're going to show people how it's built here in just a minute. But I thought once they have this image in their mind, can you give them a little background, how this got started and why, and just
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. This particular boat here you see on the screen is the Doris T, which is a Townie I built in 1991, and now lives in Somerset, Mass. It's a wood boat, obviously, and is what we call the crown jewel of the fleet because the guy maintains it fantastically.
Oh, really?
Excuse me. The Townies are probably one of our more famous products of the company. Originally designed in 1932 for kids camps in Maine and New Hampshire.
Really?
By an order received from the Maine Camping Association.
Okay.
They wanted a boat safe for kids to learn how to sail that would handle 6 kids.
Yeah.
My father-in-law and his father, Marcus, came up with this design. Along the way, it proved to be quite popular and pretty quick,
Oh, yeah?
nimble,
Yeah.
swift,
Yeah.
and the people from the Marblehead Yacht Clubs wanted a boat for sailing in the harbor that wasn't a Concordia yawl or
Right.
something costing thousands of dollars.
Big fancy thing,
These boats probably in 1936 cost $295 a piece.
Very good value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't even buy the screws for one of these boats today for $295. But anyways, sure, it's a dory front end with a skiff rear end, which makes it good for sailing.
All right. Well, we've got some additional pictures of this. Why don't we show them how it's built?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, this is the boat on the building jig.
We've actually got 2 shots of this. Should we show them the second one?
Sure, let's go to the second one.
I think this one's even better.
A little bit darker, and I
Still
have
on the jig.
several things I'd like to point out here.
Yeah.
This is the bottom of the boat. It's on a form for the shape. You can see the stem here.
Yes.
But if you remember, we were talking about that bank story of holding the bottom to the shape while we put the planks on it.
Yes.
And you get a much better view of the jacks that were braced against the ceiling, pushing the boat down in the form.
Right.
Also here you get a beautiful view of the frames of the sides of the boat that the plank will be put on.
Yes,
And these frames
yes.
are permanent frames.
It's like
And
the skeleton, if
a
you will.
skeleton.
Right.
Actually, in boat terms, it's called the skillet. And again here, referring back to that bank story, a lot of things made by patent, so it would be easily put together, boat after boat.
Oh,
I would mention that over 2,000 of these boats have been built since 1932, and probably another 300 in fiberglass.
Wow.
But we'll stick with the wood boat.
Yeah.
So,
Should we take another shot? See
yeah,
what
let's
else we
take
can do?
another shot. Okay, another view of the bottom showing the frames, and we just happen to have the frame patterns here in the shop.
Okay.
The bottom on the frame and the one going up the side.
Oh, yeah.
And a little plywood piece would hold the two pieces together on the boat.
And then you can see them right back in here.
See, and having the shape already cut out for the side makes it much easier for planking.
Yeah.
And here we are. This is a view of the edge of the plank.
Yes.
It's on 90 degrees off the horizontal to show the bevel,
Right.
which
This is the critical area here, right?
critical area.
Yeah.
Again, referring back to that bank story in the joints that had to be tight so the boat would not leak. And
Yes.
these are all hand carved,
Yes.
planed,
Yes.
whittled.
Now, was that like a iterative process? In other words, did you take one swipe at it, then try it, and then take it off and take another swipe at it? Was
Well,
it like a progressive process?
using a couple of bevel gauges, you'd rough it out,
Yes.
and then you'd have to fit it for
Okay.
fine tuning it.
Okay. Okay.
And using what's called a bench plane,
Yeah.
you'd plane it and make it smooth,
All right.
and
So after you've
just
done
take your time.
after you've done a few, you get better at it. I
Yeah.
guess the first one you do probably takes a bit of time, but then you get 100 boats under your belt and you get faster at it, right?
I personally can do 2 planks a day.
2 planks a day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I just,
Yeah. Well,
All right.
cutting them out, shaping them, sanding them.
How many
attaching
planks are there total?
There are total 10 planks in this boat, 5 on each side.
I see. All right. So,
And I might point out, planking the boat's the easy part. It's finishing it off.
oh, it is.
And as this next shot shows, there is
Yes.
more to the boat than just the basic hull.
Just the planks,
In the foreground here, we have the deck timbers, deck joists
Mm-hmm.
that support the deck being planked over it.
These guys right here.
Yeah, you can see behind it there the centerboard box. Again,
Yes.
sailboat needs some fin down into the water to keep it from blowing sideways.
Right.
It's not going before the wind, but going against the wind.
And what's this guy back here doing?
He is reinforcing the corners of the shear planks with the stern. So because there is a little side deck and people are famous for picking the boat up by the edge of that side deck, and
Right.
you don't want it to rip off.
Oh, you want to rip off? No.
No.
All right. See what else we got here. What's
Okay.
this guy doing?
Here he is measuring to cut the slot in the bottom for the centerboard box.
Okay. All right.
It's done after the boat's put together to make sure nothing has moved.
Yes. Looks like pretty much all the jigs are gone. No more jigs.
Almost
The boat's
jigs.
holding itself together with its own
Yes,
structure.
and because I might point out all these little dots.
Yes.
Those, when we talked about the bank story, we said they were clench nailed together,
Yes.
and they used steel. And after 5 years, because they weren't painted, they rusted away, and you
Right.
bought a new door.
Yeah.
These are all bronze machine screws and nuts.
Nice.
So you put it together, it stays together,
It's gonna stay for a
and
while. Yeah.
it won't rot.
Yeah.
It won't rust away.
These planks again remind me what
These
wood they're made
are
of?
Eastern white pine.
Eastern white pine.
And I'm happy to say, better quality, I don't see any knots in these planks.
Nice.
I'm
Good
happy.
wood, huh? Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
What here? What's going on?
Okay, this is a detail of putting those deck joists, timbers together.
So this is the key area right in
Yeah,
here.
yeah. But notice the slotted here.
I do see those,
You
yeah.
you take another piece of pine or oak, and you slot it so it'll bend easy.
Oh, right.
So
right,
you don't want to
right.
distort the shape of the shear,
Yes.
the curve of the
Yes,
shear.
yes.
And if you just put in a solid plank, you'd have flat spots.
Yes.
This way, the reinforcing plank will take the shape of the side, and then you can notch out and drop top part of the joist into the notch,
Interesting.
and reinforce much stronger.
Okay, it's a little trick there.
Yeah.
How about here? What are we looking at here?
Well,
Another
you see
stern
the
bow shot,
stern to the bow. You see the centerboard box. You can just barely see those posts I talked about going down through the floor.
Yep.
The side deck is being framed.
Yeah.
Again, Jerry was doing the back end of it. Most important, list of things to do, so you don't forget anything, or any processes like painting before you put the deck on.
Yeah, that's good. Good thought. Here's another
and
shot.
here
Very
is
similar.
yes, but this is from the stem looking towards the stern. Reinforcing block for the cleat,
Yeah.
deck cleat.
Okay, makes sense.
There is about to be another block of pine put in there that form the sides of the mast
Okay.
hole, the deck hole for the mast,
All right.
which goes down to the bottom,
Gives
the
some
bilge of the
strength.
boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about? See what we got
And
here.
here's a look on the inside of the a wood townie with the wash rails put on and the deck. I would like to point out to you, Paul, that the inside of this boat is called Lowell Green.
Lowell green. Okay.
Lowell Green, which is kind of a Bermuda green or yellow green.
Very similar. Yes.
It was formulated by the Gloucester Paint Company,
Yep.
especially for my father-in-law.
Nice.
So all wood townies that left the shop before 1982, some 2,000, had Lowell Green interiors.
Okay, I like that color.
It's a family color.
I used the Bermuda green, which is a very close cousin to that on my first boat. So I really
It's an
like it.
acquired taste. And here's a shot of the boat in the water
Yeah, that's a really nice
with
shot.
the sail up.
It seems to carry a lot of sail area. Is that true?
Yeah,
or is
well,
that
it's
normal for that size boat?
Yes, it's about normal for that size. It's 140 square feet of sail in the main and
Okay.
12 square feet in the jib. It's called a working jib.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have a backstay because the boom extends out over the stern 1.5 feet. So
Okay.
you have
Okay.
2 side stays, 2 shrouds, and a forestay.
Okay. It's a pretty low boat.
It is.
Yeah, really.
And a
nice.
good sailor.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ralph, it's hard to believe, but we got to wrap up the show. I mean, we covered a fair amount of ground here about the background and some of the boats you've built over the years.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the show before we wrap it up?
Sure. As we said at the beginning, I thought I'd be here for 3 years, and I've been 36 years. I don't know how much longer I'll be here. But there are other boat shops around, and I would suggest you go out and find them before we're all gone. If you have any questions, I can be reached through my website, www.pertlowell, one word, .com. Again, pertlowell.com. Come on by. We're open 5 days a week.
That's great, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. And thank you, Smart Boating viewers, for watching. If you want to make comments or if you have input, please visit our website, www.smartboatingus.com. I hope you'll come back again soon.